Hello. The title of my video today is What's Driving the Male Loneliness Epidemic? Which is a discussion that a bunch of commentators on both sides of the political spectrum are talking about nowadays. And maybe you agree that there even is one or not, but it's an interesting subject. And I did a poll on my personal social media, on my Instagram, among people that I know personally, and the results kind of fascinated me. Now, I think any complex phenomenon like this has multiple causation to it, multiple causes. And these were four that I have either think are like contributors, or that I know that other people believe are contributors. So they're interesting, right? I personally think that the driving things are a combination of cultural narcissism from the way men are taught to behave, combined with technology, and which amplifies it like gasoline on fire. I think those are definitely probably the two biggest things, and also unfortunately, like natural selection to a degree as well. So it's interesting, right? And one thing I can tell you about the results of the poll that I did is that I know the people who answered the poll, and it was interesting to reflect on, like I have a kind of a broad spectrum of people that are my friends and acquaintances. So there's a range of different people that answered the same thing, and I think that the thing that I think is the least contributor to the whole phenomenon is this idea that a lot of right-wing people have, and some of my friends believe that they think the main contributor is a conspiracy by a competing tribe to fund propaganda to destroy Western civilization. And I personally think that it's lazy thinking to believe that, instead of try to understand what's actually going on. But I also want to show you why I think this is worth talking about, because I'm going to play you a few clips from some manosphere commentators, and then I'm going to contrast that with some commentary from a feminist commentator, and just kind of show you the contrast and ideas here, or way of thinking. So some of you are probably familiar with Scott Galway. I believe he's an NYU professor, and he brings up the male loneliness epidemic and how hard it is for men to get women on dating apps, and how much harder for men. And he's very sympathetic to men, and I think he kind of paints females as being cruel and on some level like irrational. And I'm going to play this clip for you now, and then I'll comment on it. So check this clip out.
Average attractiveness has to swipe right 200 times to get one coffee, and then 4 of those 5 coffees will ghost him. You can't tell women to lower their expectations, but this is the reality. When you ask a man if you could have a woman who had 80% of everything you wanted, 75% say, yeah, I'm on board. Mm-hmm. When you say to a woman, a man has 80% of what you want, 75% say that's not enough. But even look at the media. What does the media tell a woman to do? He's out, but he didn't open your door. He's not nice to his parent. Walk right out on that man. Like, it's literally every piece of media is, you don't need him. You're a strong, independent woman. Pull the ripcord. You're out. The basic kind of communication around this is, you are a strong, independent, powerful woman. That is wonderful. And quite frankly, you don't need the imperfect man. They're just not connecting. I read that on Tinder, a man of average attractiveness has to swipe right 200 times to get one coffee, and then 4 of those 5 coffees will ghost him. They will decide they don't want to meet him, or they won't show up. That means a guy of average attractiveness has to swipe right 1,000 times to get one coffee. Now, what does that tell that guy? Women don't value me. Women make me feel rejected. And then they go online and they see these misogynists telling them it's not your fault. And these men become much more prone to misogynistic content, much more prone to nationalistic content, blaming other people for the lack of economic opportunity. They start sequestering from society. I worry that we are literally evolving a new species of asexual, asocial male. And if a man by the age of 30 hasn't either lived with someone or married someone, there's a 1 in 3 chance he's going to have a substance abuse problem.
Okay, so that was interesting, right? And I think one of the key takeaways from that is that Scott seems to feel that women have too high of standards, and that they need to lower their standards because men are willing to lower their standards, right? And I think that this is fundamentally misunderstanding human nature or being disingenuous if he thinks this is an actual way that people should live, because well, you know, the solution to the male loneliness problem is not for women to lower their standards and be unhappy. Women can go their own way and generally be happy. And I think, again, this myth in the manosphere is that men can go their own way and then will be happier, and that women will end up all unhappy cat women and stuff. But, you know, the way this works is that in nature, like, men pursue women, right? And so I think that really it's going to be the men who are unhappy, and women are happier with more community. They are, like, right-wing men will be the first to tell you, like, in their own ideology, females are more group-oriented, right? So they will hang out in groups and support each other more than men will. I mean, men are intersexual competitors. So now I'm going to show you a clip from Matt Walsh, you know, very successful conservative commentator, and he's got his idea for what'll solve this. So I'm going to show you this clip, and then I'll tell you why I think that this is interesting. So here, check this out.
Patriarchy. Ultimately, we live in a matriarchal society with institutions either run by women or by effeminate men who, in their arrogance, simply cannot accept the fact that men are different from women and have different needs and desires. So this is the real problem. It's not that men are too focused on masculinity, it's that masculinity has been neutered, castrated, driven out of society, leaving men feeling lost and without purpose. Our notions of masculinity aren't too traditional. On the contrary, they aren't nearly traditional enough. The solution isn't that we sit around and talk about our feelings. It's that we do a whole lot less of that sort of thing and get back to being men again. And if we can be men in a society that embraces and values our masculinity, suddenly this tide of male loneliness and despair will start to ebb. That is the solution. There is no other.
Okay, so Matt seems to think that the answer to all this is for men to double down on their traditional masculinity, and that's going to solve the problem. And I think, again, this is another approach where men are not, they don't seem to be trying to understand the other point of view. Like, women are telling men why, in most cases, they'd rather be alone than settle for, you know, certain types of men, and men are not really listening, and they're just rationalizing this and, you know, blaming it on something else. You know, a lot of men do have a sense of entitlement to women, but it's, you know, nature's a competition, and you do have to adapt to the market. You know, this is what I would tell these guys. You know, if you agree with Matt or if you agree with Scott, definitely comment and let me know. And tell me of the factors that I polled people on, which of these you think personally is the main driving force, or if there's another factor that's even more important than this. But like, you know, I think a lot of right-wing men lack self-awareness, and they also lack an understanding of, you know, the perspective of other people, obviously. So I'm going to play another interesting clip from a female feminist commentator that I found online. You know, she's not a huge name the way Matt Walsh is, but this is, you know, she's an attractive woman, and she's outspoken, and she's, you know, expressing a view that I think a lot of women share. So this is worth looking at too. So check this out.
And oof, these poor men. 200 swipes for one coffee times 80% times and swipe. It's so exhausting. Don't they know that these men need their wrists for, can't be swiping. Oh, like, woo. These poor men, they can't even get on Tinder and order a Madonna of a wife or a Schmeck's worker of a booty call to be delivered to their door. And, you know, Galloway here makes it sound like women are being very arbitrary and cruel to men, because with all this stuff of, you know, the average man would accept the average woman, but the average woman won't accept the average man. And like that whole idea of comparing things and assuming all things are equal in these expectations. And we see, like, there's absolutely no curiosity or look at, what are these expectations? Like, what are they?
Okay, so that was also interesting, right? What she's saying contrasted with what, you know, Matt and Scott are talking about is interesting, right? So I think ultimately that a lot of this stuff comes back to capitalism as well. And, you know, I'm a humanist. I think that all people should be able to be autonomous, which means like economically autonomous. And I think that my own personal view is that when people really care about each other, they're both in a strong position of autonomy, and then they can come together because they get something valuable out of it. And I think that a lot of men, I mean, I'm generalizing here, but so this isn't everything, but a lot of men just hate feminism and the idea of like economic equality, because it does change the dating market, and it takes away something that like something that tilts the game in their favor and makes it easier for them to get a mate, right? When women in the past have been financially dependent on men, they have to settle for stuff, and it kind of, in a way, in my mind, slows down evolution. One thing that I find fascinating too, you know, I talk a lot about other cultures like India, and I have friends from Kerala, and I've talked about how I'm impressed by their state government, right? But also in India, the custom of arranged marriage is the norm there, and that also seems like hell to me. So there's a lot of reasons why I hate the West, but I also don't want to, you know, admittedly live in other cultures either, because at the end of the day, it's hard to express. Like, the West is toxic, but I am just such a Western person, and that I need autonomy. But I'm not like a crazy libertarian that thinks I'm separate from the group. Like, it's you know, we're all part of we're all citizens of a country, and we are one big, you know, as Bruce Lee says, under the heavens, under the stars, we are but one family, right? So that is actually true. So everything's about a balance between being part of a collective and getting your individuality and you know, self-actualization out there, and being able to do that, which requires autonomy. And if you actually believe in equality and stuff, then you should support that for both sexes. Anyway, these are some perspectives I wanted to share with you on this concept of the male loneliness epidemic, and I just want to hear feedback from different people. And you know, if you're willing, share, like, if you're a man, a woman, and what your kind of class is and stuff like that, and then say like what your opinion on this is, because I think it's interesting contrasting the differences in what the different sexes are saying on the issue. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.